All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Kamal Malik. I am here representing Sankofa Video, Books, and Cafe, a Pan-African sanctuary nestled across the street from Howard University, 2714 Georgia Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C., for the last 26 years, in fact. We have a very great discussion for you today, as we always bring you excellent discussions. One of our speakers is no stranger to the stage. We've had several events with her. I'm going to start by reading her bio. To my right, we have the Honorable Marita Golden, who is an award-winning author of over 20 works of fiction and nonfiction, which include her classic memoir, Migrations of the Heart, and the novel, The Wide Circumference of Love. Her most recent book is The New Black Woman Loves Herself, Has Boundaries, Heals Every Day. She has taught creative writing at major universities, including George Mason University, Virginia Commonwealth University, Johns Hopkins University, as well as the University of the District of Columbia. She co-founded the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation and serves as President Emeritus. She has appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Wow. and has been a question on Jeopardy. So daytime television on lock. All right. Welcome the Honorable Marita Golden. Please, round of applause. And Ms. Golden will be in conversation with our guest, the Honorable Bernardine Watson. All right. So Bernardine Watson is a nonfiction writer and poet who lives in Washington, D.C. Dean has written on social policy issues for many major foundations, nonprofit organizations, and for the Washington Post Health and Science section, and She the People blog. Her poetry has been published in many journals and anthologies, including Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Bourgeon and Gargoyle Magazine. Now, Dean is a member of the 2015 class of the DC Commission on Arts and Humanities Poet in Progress program. That's a mouthful. And the 2017 and 2018 classes of the Hurston Wright Foundation Summer Writers Workshop for Poetry. Her memoir, Transplant, won the 2023 Washington Writers Publishing House Prize for Nonfiction. Okay, we got award-winning people here. All right. In October 2023, she was featured reader in DC's Inner Loop reading series, and Dean was selected by Poets and Writers magazine as one of the 5 over 50 for 2023. Now, that's a nice thing to do. They're always talking about the 30 under 30, but the 5 over 50 is just as important, if not more. So clap it up. It's only 5. All right. And she is featured in their November-December issue. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome and round of applause for the Honorable Bernardine Watson. I am going to exit stage right, and I will pass the microphone to our discussants.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We lost. Huh?
I cut it off.
Oh, you cut it off. Sabotage. Youngins trying to sabotage us. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I am really, really pleased to be here. This is a night, Dean. It's been about a decade in the making. We've been together on this journey for a while. Dean attended a workshop at my house about 8-9 years ago. And she had an essay that was the germ of this book. And I said to her, that is a book. And I have to say that I work with a lot of writers in the capacity of mentor, teacher, consultant, but Dean has all the qualities that put you on the stage like this. Not just real talent, but dedication to the story. And this is a woman who was still living with a chronic illness. And she found a way to keep writing and found that the writing not just gave her another reason to live, but deeply enhanced her life. And it's been a real honor and pleasure to work with her. And it's just, as the book grew more and more into the story that it became, I became more and more excited. So we're going to start with Dean reading a little section from the book, and then we're going to have a conversation, and then we'll open it to your questions.
Thank you, Marita. What Marita didn't tell you is that she worked with me over all of those years as a kind of coach. I would write a chapter and send it to her and get her feedback, and then I would make changes and move on to the next chapter. And the feedback that Marita gave me wasn't feedback about, grammar or this should go here or this should go there. She really talked to me about being real and open in telling my story. And I took that to heart. If any of you have read the book, that's the one piece of feedback I get from people, that it's really honest. And sometimes I get a little nervous about how honest I am in the book, but it's out there now. So I'm going to read from the prologue of the book, and it actually is the fleshed out germ of an essay that I took to Marita's workshop many, many years ago. So this is from the prologue, That Smell. And I'll also say that I'm going back to dialysis after the failure of my first kidney. Here I am again, back where I never thought I'd be, especially not on Christmas, December 2004. Am I dreaming? If I'm dreaming, somebody please wake me up. My husband Joe parks the car and walks me as far as the front door of 11 DuPont Circle. He's reluctant to leave, but has a work meeting. Are you sure you'll be okay, he asks, reaching for my arm. I'm not at all sure I'll be okay. I'm trembling on the inside, but trying my hardest to look confident and calm on the outside. I look my husband dead in the eye and lie to him, nodding yes. I'll be all right, I say. I don't think anything much will happen today. Probably just an orientation. Whatever happens, I'll handle it, I say. You go on. I heard myself say, I'll handle it. A familiar refrain coming from me. I'm used to handling things whether I need help or not, and not yet used to a husband who has my back. Frankly, the longer we stand outside the building, the more I want Joe to just go. I want to get this first day over with, but my sweet husband won't leave me. You know I can come back for you around 10:30, right? That's the time you'll be finished, right? He asks, pulling at my coat sleeve for emphasis. Baby, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to drive myself home, I say, feigning patience. You don't have to come back over here. Besides, I don't know exactly how long I'll be. Like I said, today will probably be an orientation. Listen, let me go in. I don't want to be late. All right, Joe says, tugging at my coat sleeve again. I'll be back for you at 10:30. You're not driving today. Maybe the next time, but not today. I need to see the inside of this place. I want to see where my baby will be. I hug him with one arm and pull on the heavy glass door of the building with the other. A guard is standing at the desk in the building's lobby reading the newspaper. Before I can ask for directions, he glances at me and mumbles, dialysis, right? Take the elevator down to the basement, and returns to reading his paper. I stand glued to the floor, stunned into immobility. That man has no idea that he's tapped into a deep insecurity of mine and hit me with a very low blow. What is it about me that makes him think I can only be going to the dialysis center? Aren't there at least 4 more floors and many more offices in this building? After a few weeks of coming to 11 DuPont Circle, I understand exactly why the guard drew the conclusion he had. Most of the Black people who come into this lobby every day are going down to the basement for dialysis. But on my first day in the building, I have no idea who comes in and out. His assumption pisses me off. I think as I check my reflection in the mirror, how dare he? Do I look like a dialysis patient? Is that all I am now? Is it all down from here? The elevator doors open into a dark vestibule, which doesn't seem to belong to the rest of this brightly lit, beautifully landscaped building. As I turn to my right, the first thing I see through the windows of the vestibule doors is a disturbingly large white banner with big, bold black and red letters in case I had any doubt about where I was. Fresenius Medical Care, DuPont Circle Dialysis Center. The waiting area on the other side of the doors is lined with rows of plastic folding chairs. All the chairs I can see are filled with Black people, talking, laughing, and drinking coffee or soda. Some are eating what look like breakfast sandwiches from fast food restaurants. Ugh. I stand for a while outside the doors looking in. The scene looks like a group of people at a social gathering rather than patients waiting to be hooked up to machines. How the hell am I going to do this? I ask under my breath. These are not my people. I have no choice and I enter. Oh my God, that smell. An awful but familiar odor hits me in the face as soon as I enter the room. I place my hand over my nose and mouth to keep from inhaling the putrid air. Immediately, I am flooded with memories of my first go-round with dialysis, a brief 2-month stint before my first transplant in 2000 at Philadelphia's Presbyterian Hospital. The center at the hospital smelled as foul as this one. A dialysis technician at the Presbyterian Center told me that the stench came from the chemicals used to clean the dialysis machines. I had no reason to doubt the guy, but to me, the odor seemed a more sinister mixture of blood, sweat, tears, fear, human body waste, and yes, death. Looking for a place to sit down and steady myself, I grabbed the first empty chair. With my head lowered, eyes squeezed shut, and coat still wrapped tightly around my body, I hope no one will bother me. I need a moment to get myself together. I can't seem to calm my racing mind and pounding heart. I hear a yoga teacher telling me to breathe and be in the moment, but I don't want to breathe this air. And at the present moment, in this chair, in this room, in this building, is the very last place I want to be. Swaddled in my cocoon, I retreat to a narrative that has been playing in my head since my kidney failure a week before. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be facing dialysis again. Everyone, all the doctors and nurses who treated me before, during, and after my transplant were certain I'd be okay. My older sister Alice had been my donor, which almost guaranteed a successful transplant. I remember the transplant doctor at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, where the surgery took place, saying confidently, "You and your sister are a perfect blood and tissue match. You should do very well. This transplant should last you at least 20 years. I believed them. My family had prayed for me incessantly. Where did those prayers go? Was all that prayer for naught? I'd fallen woefully short of doing very well. After not quite 5 years, I am sitting in the lobby of Fresenius Medical Care, once again waiting for my turn at the dialysis machine. Merry Christmas to me. I'd counted on the doctors to be right. I have plans. a life to live, milestones to achieve. As far as I was concerned, I'd been a bit of a late bloomer and needed to make up for lost time. A few missteps in my youth had landed me behind my peers on the professional development curve. At the age of 19, instead of experiencing life on a college campus, I was married with a baby. For several years, I lived on welfare and food stamps and dragged my baby boy through more ratty living situations than I wanted to remember while I scratched and clawed my way through college. In 1984, at 33 years of age and with a great new job and 2 dysfunctional marriages behind me, I thought I was poised to fly. However, that year, for reasons I will never understand, I was diagnosed with a kidney disease that had a name I couldn't pronounce: focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, or FSGS. According to the doctor who gave me the horrible news, FSGS had the potential to destroy my kidneys and kill me. Did I fall apart? No, I handled it. I pulled myself together like the tough South Philly girl I am and spent the next 15 years working and striving to stay as healthy as I could, telling almost no one about my condition. Why should I? My diagnosis was nobody's business but mine. Besides, who wants the pity or curiosity of sympathizers? I certainly didn't. FSGS was my secret until I couldn't keep the secret anymore. By 1999, the year my daddy died, my diminishing kidney function began to make me ill. I'll never forget the day a nephrologist told me, "You're going to need dialysis or a kidney transplant soon." The doctor was right. I needed both. I went through all that back in 2000. Now, here I am again. I almost cried reading that.
You can cry. As we were working together, I vividly remember, Dean, talking to you about how important it was to go deep and share the very mixed, complex, raw emotions that having this type of disease and dealing with this and living with this would evoke in you. And at the same time, I remember telling you, I need to put this book down and know everything there is about kidney disease. So she had to do that, and I had to know everything about her. And this is such an important book because Black people in America and globally are disproportionately affected by kidney disease more than other people. And I had a real feeling that this could be a powerful personal testimony and a powerful medical testimony as well. So you're going to get everything you ever wanted or didn't want to know about kidney disease wrapped in this wonderful story of a working class girl out of Philly, full of grit, who steals your heart, who becomes someone you really love in the course of this book. And because family is so much a part of this, I want to first talk to you about family, because in the course of the book, there's such a journey with your family, you know, asking your sister to donate a kidney, dealing with past emotional history with family members as they supported you or supported you in varying ways through this. So talk about that whole family piece and what you discovered about your family, your relationship to your family as you were going through this.
Okay, I just want to read a very short piece about my family, and then I'll talk a little bit about that. I grew up in a Black, poor to working class family in South Philadelphia, just blocks away from the 7th Ward area where W.E.B. Du Bois did his landmark 1899 sociological study, The Philadelphia Negro. My parents, Alice and Bernard, both from large, struggling parents, had 5 children. Alice, named for my mom, and often called Baby Alice. Me, Bernardine, named after my dad, Bernard. Judith, Linda, and the youngest boy, Bernard Jerome. All 7 of us lived in a tiny rickety row house at 1437 Montrose Street in Philadelphia. Grandma Daisy Hayes, who separated from my grandfather Samuel when my father was a boy, lived next door. Daddy's sister, Aunt Betty, lived down the street with her children and scores of aunts and uncles and cousins. They all lived within walking distance. We were the Hayes clan, well known and respected in the neighborhood as people who didn't bother anyone if no one bothered them. For much of his adult life, Daddy worked on construction sites as a mason tender who helped organize tools, transport materials, and keep the site clean. My father was a highly intelligent man who later in life told me how much he hated that job and how disrespectfully he was treated by white coworkers. I'm fortunate I didn't kill someone on that job, he admitted. But Daddy got up every morning and went to work to support his family. In the 1970s, when my father was in his 40s, he got a job as a business agent for Laborers Local in Philadelphia, and later proudly served as the local's vice president. And I say all that to give a little bit of background about where I came from. And I also want to say that I came from people who were private people, who did not talk about whatever was going on. And so that's how I could spend 15 years not telling anybody what was going on inside my body. And I'll just read just a little bit more about my family. With few exceptions, we and the neighbors we lived among were hardworking people. We loved each other, fought each other, and looked out for each other. At the same time, despite our closeness and proximity and emotion, everyone did what they could to keep their personal business to themselves. In our world, people came and went. Babies were born and died. Folks coupled and broke up. Fortunes rose and fell without much open discussion of their circumstances. Ain't nobody's business was the unspoken and, when necessary, spoken mantra. My father Bernard often told us, what happens in this house stays here. There would be hell to pay if he ever heard of any of us putting family business in the street. So I can see some heads nodding. I mean, that's the way it was. I don't know about other cultures, but it was certainly, that way in the Black culture. And, my father took care of us, no question, but he was he was a harsh man. The world had treated him harshly. And so he was the kind of person that you did not cross. And I ended up leaving home at 19 years old because I came home pregnant. And my father said, oh no, not in this house. So, he said, you got to find someplace else to live, and I did. But it was that thing that happened in my family that also made it very, very difficult for me to rely on my family and go back there and deal with those ghosts. Because after I left home, that kind of broke our relationship. I rarely went home after that. My mom was heartbroken over what happened, but of course that was her family. That was her husband. And so there were all those ghosts that were in the air as I dealt with this disease, and then finally having to come home to my family and ask my sisters to help me.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about how writing is a process that's not just about putting words on a page, but it's emotional and it's psychological. And I'd like you to talk about how this book helped you heal. If in any ways it helped you heal and understand your family more, heal yourself and understand yourself more.
Boy, that's difficult, but I will try. I've always been a writer. I've done a lot of writing in my life. But writing this book, writing about myself, writing about such personal things as, what happened inside my family, what's going on inside my body, it was difficult. But I decided that I wanted to be seen. I, Bernardine Watson, no longer, I wanted to be seen by my family. I wanted to be seen by my coworkers. I wanted to be seen as who I was. And the more honest I got, the more honest I could be. I wrote about things I never thought I would say in public. I wrote about bodily functions. I wrote about my relationship with my father, who, in the course of writing the book, I think I was really able to forgive, because I wrote about sitting in the church at his funeral, and thinking about his childhood and thinking about what he had to endure. And so writing that really helped me to just think through all of that and see him in a different way. I wrote about, I came to grips with my sister, my older sister, who was my first kidney donor. Unfortunately, that kidney that was supposed to last for 20 years only lasted 5 years, because this disease can come back. But through the process, I could see how much my sister really loved me. She gave me a kidney. And no matter what else was going on, I thought she left me. She left home. She was 5 years older than me, and she had been like a second mother to me. Everybody was trying to get out of 1437 Montrose Street. And when she got that chance, she left. And I felt like she left me there. And I did not forgive her for that. But she gave me a kidney. And she came and stayed with me at my house while I prepared for that first surgery. And so I had to come to grips with that. That was some unconditional love, no matter what else was going on. I have 2 other sisters. I was estranged from the family, but they both went and got tested. And writing about that, I called them up and I talked to them and I interviewed them, for the book. And as a part of those discussions, I began to see that, this is my family. We are not perfect. Nobody's family is perfect, but they made me, they love me. We will never be alike. They're religious. I'm not. They are, they eat pork. I don't. But they love me. And I think that I began to feel, as Marita pushed me to, talk to them about what I didn't tell them everything I was going to write, because I didn't want to ask anybody's permission for it, but to talk with them about what we remembered. I began to feel their love and support. And I will say, even though I'm sure my siblings don't love everything I wrote in the book, I've spoken with them since the book's come out. And one sister told me that it helped her understand her role in the family, much more. Then people are happy that I had the courage to write the book and talk about things that we had never talked about before.
Amen. And, the writing is this powerful tool for self-expression, but also for healing. Now, the last thing about family is we have to talk about Jill. I mean, I have a Jill at home, so
Yes,
sometimes Jills are very special people.
There's a Joe in the audience.
There's another Jill? Yeah, 2 Jills.
Yeah,
And-
there's my husband.
And what you get in this book is this wonderful love story. Your ability, despite these marriages that didn't work, to grow, to evolve, to bring into your life the support that you needed. And talk about how important it was, because kidney disease is such a taxing thing, on your body and then just on your life. 3 times a week, you've got to do this thing. Talk about how important it is to have a partner, a soulmate, a friend who can support you through that, and how important Joe was and is.
She's gonna cry.
Well, my friend Loretta told me the other day, she said, what'd she say? Smell the roses, blow out the candles, and that'll keep you from crying. So I'm going to try it right now. Okay. Well, that's my Joe sitting right over there. And a lot of people, a lot of our friends in the audience know Joe, and they know what kind of person he is and what probably type of person he'd be. Wow. Let me get my glasses back on. To anybody, to somebody he had made that kind of commitment to. But Joe and I had dated for many, many years, off and on. He was very committed to his children and to his mother who lived with him. And so we just could not jump. We were both married before. There's lots of reasons we couldn't just jump into a relationship. But when the time was right, we started dating seriously. And it was also around the time that I was getting sicker. When my first kidney was really starting to go bad. And I really was afraid because I was an independent consultant and I didn't have good health insurance. So I was costing me a lot of money. And I said, Joe, one day we were just hanging out on the sofa and I said, we weren't married yet, but I said, one thing I'm really afraid of is not being able to take care of myself in the future. I said, I don't have good insurance. And Joe said to me, I have insurance. And I said, is that a proposal? And he said, yeah. But then he gave me a more formal proposal. I don't know if you call it formal, but one night we were sitting, we were at, what was Blues Alley. And he wrote on a napkin, will you marry me? And I said yes, and we got married. I tell people we got married because I needed insurance.
Okay, I've already seen Angela Bassett and Courtney Vance in the movie.
That wasn't really it. We got married because we had both decided to make a real commitment to each other. And we were both in our 50s. I had been married twice before. He'd been married once before. And Joe became just the reason I could get through this very disappointing thing. One of the reasons, because I'm pretty gritty myself. I would have gotten through it. But he certainly helped quite a bit. Joe would drive me to dialysis every day. He would drive in with me. And I would drive myself home. I refused to be too dependent on him. He would come by the dialysis center sometimes and peek in on me. And as a result, the people treated me better. They know someone at dialysis. If they know someone cares about you, they will pay attention. I'd look up and he'd be standing in the doorway watching. He was just fiercely in my corner as there were several people who said they would give me kidneys that didn't work out. Joe wanted to be my kid, and they didn't work out, and he was right there by my side the whole time. Joe wanted to give me a kidney, and he was not my match. But we were fortunate enough to get into a program at Hopkins Hospital where they were just starting to do these dialysis. I can never remember the word. It's not a train, it's a chain. Yeah, train is something totally different. Dialysis chains where they take people and put them all into a computer until they come up with matches. So I brought Joe into the situation where he could give a kidney to someone so I could get a match. And so he gave up a kidney and gave a kidney to a stranger so that I could get a kidney. We recovered together, over the next 6 weeks or so, and spent our days watching reruns of The Sopranos and and walking around the block so that we could get stronger and becoming closer and closer, as we did it. He's dealt with my family for me, in very difficult situations when I just didn't have the wherewithal, to do it. He's a voice that people listen to, including me, most of the sometimes. But having someone, I tell people that I've had 3 marriages and 1 husband, and that husband is Joe Davis.
The last question before I open it up to the audience is, how did you maintain and how do you maintain your emotional health when you're dealing with this kind of chronic illness? And how did it evolve and change over the years?
It's a difficult thing to try to stay emotionally strong when you're being attacked and your body lets you down. As one doctor said to me, your body will let you down. Why do I have this? Because sometimes your body just lets you down. And in this case, I'm Black. Black people are more likely to get kidney disease, and I'm human. Flesh lets you down. So, that's the situation. But I learned over time that I needed to get a handle on my emotions because my emotions were making me more sick. When I started in dialysis, man, I hated it. I hated the people. I hated the process. I hated everything about it until I had to get clear on the fact that I wanted to live. And I didn't just want to live and struggle. I wanted to live and be as healthy as I possibly could be. And so I really had to get a spiritual practice that allowed me to go inside and be quiet and connect to something larger than myself. Even though I'm not religious, I know it sounds trite, but I've learned to be a spiritual person. I had to begin to love myself, despite the fact that I had this disease. There was a time when I would not tell anybody, that I was on dialysis. I would not tell anybody, I wouldn't let anybody see my dialysis scar, which looks much better, but it was horrid. I would not wear short sleeves, no matter how hot it was outside. I had to emotionally deal with the fact that I was human and that there would be struggles, but I had to still love myself. I also decided I was important. I had something to say. I had something to do. I had a reason for being. And there were people that loved me. And so I needed to get myself together and be the strongest, best person that I knew how to be. I nap every day. I do everything I can to take care of myself because, well, I love myself and it's not just me. I also don't want to be a burden on the people around me. I don't want my mom to have to see me be ill. My mother's 96 years old. I wanted to be as healthy as I could for her, but mostly I wanted to take care of myself for me so I could be the person that I wanted to be in the world.
Who has a question for Dean? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, she's going to bring it here. Hi, Hooray. Hi.
Congratulations, I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
It sounds like it is many things, including a love letter to yourself, to Joe, and I'm wondering what part of it might be a love letter to the Black community, and what would you want them to take from it, from your writing, to help guide their own healing journey with regard to their kidney health. Anyway.
Well, I bought some, the book is not a medical book, but it does have stats in it because I had to address this issue. African Americans make up 13% of the population, but they are 35% of the people with kidney disease. 35% of the people on dialysis are Black. I've been to dialysis centers all over the country, from Martha's Vineyard to Detroit, because I learned how to use the travel system so that I could get the hell out of there when I needed a break. And every center I go to is full of Black people. When I went to dialysis in Martha's Vineyard, there were only 4 chairs and 3 of them had Black people sitting in them. So, I mean, it's a crisis. Diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity are the things that lead to kidney disease. And we are 2 to 3 times higher in percentage than any other group in the country. So my love letter to Black people is, I mean, we know that there are also environmental issues. No grocery stores, no fresh food, too much salt in our food, the stress that is starting to be called weathering, what Black people have to weather to live in America. And so, my love letter to Black people is go to the doctors. And when you go to the doctor to get a physical, ask them to check your kidney function. They don't always do it. Tell them your numbers. You want to know what your creatinine level is. That's the amount of protein that builds up in your kidney. You want to know what the ratio is between protein, and you want to know how much protein is in your urine. You make them tell you so that you can get ahead of this disease. I think that, things like eating more healthily, the obesity issues. I know that these things are, they've been in our community for a very long time, but if you have a friend or a family member or whatever, speak to them honestly about the fact that we really do need to take care of ourselves. And I think that Black people can also become kidney donors. It's really important because even though I ended up having a white donor and I've had my second kidney now for 14 years, Black people genetically do better with other Black people when you have to do these organ transplants. So we need more Black people to donate kidneys. And then you have to take care of your health because often a lot of Black people are not in good enough health to be donors. So that's my love letter. Take care of yourself, love yourself, do everything you can to be a healthy person.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
You know I'm gonna ask you.
Yes, go ahead, ask.
You did it?
Yeah. Do I need, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
I think as someone who's read the book and also interviewed you, I feel like it's kind of, I have a cheat sheet here.
Yeah.
The question of my people and your resentment of, being told by the guard, you go downstairs. Do I look like a kidney dialysis patient? Well, you were. And she's getting it. I want you to talk about how you came from these are not my people to full-fledged solidarity including the dedicated the three people who were dialysis patients who you dedicated the book to.
Yeah.
Share with the.
Yeah. The whole issue of my people is a difficult one for me.
Yeah, and that was, I just want to say, every time she would come up on this sort of raw emotion that we would think is shameful or something that you don't say out loud, you got to say that.
Yes.
I want to know more about that. Because the reader actually bonds with you over your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, the things that you're ashamed of, because we recognize that. So I kept pushing her and she kept going.
Yeah. And my friend Natalie, who's here tonight, she said she interviewed me too for a fabulous blog that I posted. She said, you even shared, your bitchy moments when you were not being kind to people. And I that was a decision. I was pushed by Marita, and then I could really get into it, But the issue of my people was one of those things that I didn't really want to admit that I felt that way. I really did not want to be there, with those people. Those were not my people. And I don't think it's so unusual when you have grown up in a culture that pushes you to do better, be better, get a better house, go to a different neighborhood and all those things, get your education. And sometimes mostly without the help of my family, I did all those things.
This is the honor. She was the most educated. She was the most professional. She was the healthiest. And she gets FSG.
And I got FSGS. And, I'm still there's certainly other things in my family, but nobody else has kidney disease but me. And so I was really clear that those were definitely not my people. But I have to say, I'm going to read just a part of the book here. I'm proud of how hard I worked for my academic education, working sometimes full-time and sometimes part-time while raising my son as a single parent and earning 2 degrees from Temple University. However, the years I spent on dialysis at Fresenius Kidney Care in DuPont Circle gave me a different kind of schooling once I opened my eyes wide enough to learn something. As I began my second year of dialysis at Fresenius, something inside me began to shift. The tight spool of anger, fear, disappointment, and grief at the center of my being began to slowly loosen. I suspect that my body could no longer hold all the negativity I'd been carrying around, and my saner inner voice was finally kicking in. When I think about that first year of dialysis now, I wonder if I was going through something closer to the Kubler-Ross well-known stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. To this day, I can't say exactly when I began the acceptance stage of grief. Let's just say that I was beginning to realize that despite my delusions, I was in the same bloody boat as everyone else on my shift at Fresenius. We were all Black, on dialysis, and a few steps away from death. I'd thrown up all over myself and screamed out in agony from leg cramps, just like others. Maybe I had a few more pennies or years of education than most of the other patients, but these were my people.
And as we were working together, I remember coaching you through getting to the fact that this was your family. And when you got to that point, I said, this is so beautiful. Because you have these two families. You have your biological family, and then you have your dialysis family. And the people you met in there were often broken, had been battered by life, and you learned to open your heart in compassion to really care about them. So this is a deeply spiritual book as well.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that the people were always my people. Everybody in there looked like somebody I had grown up with. T, who was a a drug addict, and had had several strokes. He was my Uncle Bobby, who had died of a drug overdose. And the woman who sat next to me, Cassandra, who would drive to North Carolina over the weekend to take care of her father and come back on Monday or Tuesday to get her dialysis treatment. I knew her. Those were my aunts and my cousins who worked themselves to death, who took care of everybody else before they took care of themselves. And Clint, who I really despised when I first started, because he would always try to hit on me whenever I would walk by. I'm in dialysis. I'm dying, you know? But, you know, it was just like walking down the street when I was a kid. Those guys, you know, oh, here comes Miss Dean. She don't look like she should be on dialysis, do she? She sure looked good this morning. I despise that guy. But, you know, those people took care of me, too. They told me I needed to bring a blanket when I came to dialysis. They took me in. They recognized me as one of theirs. And so it helped me, you know, to open up to them. And, you know, all three of those people who were my friends at dialysis, I went back to visit the center maybe about 7 to 8 years ago, and they were all dead. You know, they were all gone. And I had been fortunate enough to talk about wanting a transplant, to stay healthy enough to get a transplant, because dialysis is no joke. You got to follow a diet. You have to be healthy enough to be on the transplant list. I had people who cared about me. I had good insurance through my husband, and I was able to work my way out of that system. But if you are poor, if you don't have anybody that cares about you, if the doctors just come in, they liked me because I read the New York Times. The doctors would come in and they would say, oh, Miss Watson reads the New York Times. It made me special. But, you know, so I had to check myself because I ain't special. I'm Black as the rest of those people that were in there. And so, but I found that if you have insurance, that people care about you, if you can speak up for yourself, if you would challenge the system, you have a better chance of making it through the medical system. So that is, I forgot what the original question was, but that's, yeah, that's right.
But also one of the things you said, people also had other reasons for not going after a kidney.
Yes.
Well, it's not going to work, or, you know, sort of fatalistic. Some people, it seemed, had a kind of, well, it's not going to work, or I can't work it.
Yeah, well, Black people have had very difficult experiences with the medical system. Yeah. You know, Cassandra, who sat next to me, had a kidney transplant, and it didn't work, and she almost died. And so she said, no, not doing, I know dialysis. I can come here 3 days a week, and I know what that's about. This putting somebody else's organ in my body, not doing that again. Clint told me that if he stopped dialysis, he wouldn't get his disability checks anymore. So, and after 3 years, they make you work. You know, you will be able to get disability for 3 years. After that, you have to find a job or have some other means to support yourself. And other people said, nope, I don't want them doing anything to me. And so I think that that was the reality. It wasn't, all of it was not my reality, but that's the reality I came to see in many of the people that were there. They, and some of them were too sick. There were people that were already had amputations. They already had diabetes. They already had lots and lots of things going on. And they were not eligible. And also the doctors didn't push them. You know, I'm sure there's some financial reasons to keep people on dialysis and on those systems. So, I mean, that's a great study for somebody. But for all those, for lots of those reasons, there were other reasons that people did not get a transplant. Yes.
Hi, I'm about halfway through your book, Dean, and it is incredible. But I think it's profound, and I think it's readable, and it's interesting. But I think it's also more important even than you're saying, because I'm a white person, and frankly, white people they don't face kidney disease as bad as blacks, but they do have it. And to have you write with such courage about how and detail about what you went through and how you faced the problems you faced. That's important for everybody to hear, whether you're black or white. And the other thing is, it's not just for dialysis, it's not just for kidney, but I have friends who've had cancer and had horrible situations, and I don't think faced them nearly as well as you did, although some do. But as you know, I had a husband that had terrible problems, and he suffered, but like you, he had a lot of courage, so that got him through a lot.
I think this gentleman, did you want to say?
Okay. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Steve.
Well, like my wife, I haven't read your book as yet, and I'm eager to do so because it sounds like a book of triumph. And in order to a person to emerge triumphant from anything, they have to have gone through their lowest period, their lowest moment. And I'm curious if you could talk about what your lowest moment was and what got you through it.
Well, I can think of three things. One was having kidney failure for a second time. Thinking that my first kidney was going to last 20 years and it lasted 5. That was devastating. What got me through that? Well, that was one. And then 2 happened while I was on dialysis. I was still in my phase of, these are not my people. And I experienced 2 situations that let me know I was no better than anybody else in the room. One was I was asleep and I started having these horrible leg cramps. And what can happen on dialysis is the dialysis machine can take off too much fluid. The machines are not perfect. You think they are, but they are not. And I had seen other people get sick on the machine, but I never thought that I would. I threw up all over the place from these horrible cramps. And there is nothing that they can do but give you a little bit of saline, and you just have to ride it through. And I was sitting there in all my South Philly girl grit and glory with vomit all over me and with everybody watching me. The other was, well, people were watching, but it was no big deal to them. I mean, they'd all been through it. The other thing was having one of the needles come out during dialysis and my blood going all over. And it only happened because I was just asleep. I jostled my arm and the needle came out. And these were moments when I could have died. And I think having Joe by my side to help me and having a deep belief in my own worth as a human, that I deserved to live and that I was going to fight for my life is what helped me get over it.
I'm interested in, and I've had health issues, so I always say, why me? Did you look or research, was it a family issue or hereditary, or do you have any idea, or other people in your family affected by this kidney disease?
No one in my family that I knew of had had focal segmental glomerular. I still have trouble saying it sometimes, sclerosis. Or kidney disease for that matter. My father was a diabetic, my mother had heart disease, but nobody had this disease. So I was floored, and the doctors were floored. They would say, well, do you have lupus? Like, what's going on? But so I did try to find out. It was not hereditary in the traditional sense. But what they are finding out now is that in terms of this particular disease that I have, FSGS, there could be a gene called the APOL1 gene that Black people carry. It goes back to Africa. And if that gene is, damaged in any way, it makes you more likely to get this focal segmental glomerular sclerosis, or what they call nephrotic syndrome. Now, I would also talk to my doctor about genetic testing, because what they're finding is that this gene can jump around over generations, and it may not seem like the disease you have is hereditary, but that gene in your body, in your family, can move around. So I'm going to be genetically tested to find out if that is why I have kidney disease, because I have a grandchild now and a son, and so I want to know. But as far as I know, it's not traditionally hereditary. I'm Black and I got it.
I want to thank you for having this conversation today. I didn't know what the discussion was going to really be about. But I don't really know what my question is, but I just wanted to share that, my mom is on dialysis since 2018, and it's a pretty scary situation because over the last few years, she's been on the brink of death a few different times, but been able to, she had infection before when she was doing home dialysis. And this issue is definitely something that is in our community. And my question for you is, I guess my question would be in terms of being a donor, what are the risks? Because to an extent, I want to be a donor for my mom, but I'm also nervous because I know having one kid, and if it's hereditary, what if, I get something later and I only have one kidney? Sometimes when you don't only have one kidney, I know if you get hurt or something, it could be very damaging. So just what are the risk factors for, donating a kidney?
Well, I'm not a medical person, but what I've read and observed, the risks are very low. And I mean, Joe, do you want to speak to this since you donated a kidney for me?
With all surgeries, there's risk all of the time. And I think that the risks are not so great that it's not worth it. In fact, if I could do it again, I would. I only have one. There are risk factors, though, so there's no point in pretending that there aren't. At one point, a few years ago, I developed gout, and the doctor said I was more likely to have gout because I only have one kidney, which means I don't get rid of waste as well as other people. And so I take a pill every day, but that's the extent of it. But I still, I ride my bike 3 or 4 times a week. I go to the Y, so there's no physical limitations on me. And I really do encourage people to consider becoming a donor and not to shy away from it. I think it is, whatever difficulties you have to go through surgery, you have to take a little time off of work, just as you would with any surgery. But believe me, it's the idea of being able to help somebody in that way is well worth it. And I'll repeat that I would do it again if I could. So that lets you know that I think it's a good thing to do.
Hi, thank you. I'm enjoying the discussion. I have a friend who recently received a transplant. And one of the things he mentioned is, as you talked about, you have to be healthy. And they had like 9 or 10 points that he needed to achieve. Can you speak about how do you maintain the health while you're going through the dialysis, which I assume takes quite a bit out of you? So what were some of the things you did to make sure you were strong enough to receive the actual transplant?
Well, fortunately, I've always been a pretty healthy person, so I came into my kidney issues in good health. So that was the first thing. And on dialysis, you really do have to follow the rules of dialysis, and it's not easy, but there are consequences if you don't. When you have to limit the amount of water that you drink because your kidneys are not working well, and eventually you will likely not be able to urinate. Oh, and for me, that was just the idea of it was horrible. You know, I thought I must smell like pee. You know, really, it was terrible. I mean, Joe would say, "Oh, as much as I hug and kiss on you, if you smell like pee, you know, I will let you know." But you know, I felt like that. But you have to limit the amount of water that you drink. I think it was something like 4 glasses of water a day you could have, and that might seem like a lot, but when you really start thinking about it, and you have to consider the water that's in fruit, in vegetables, and other things, it's not a lot. So you're always thirsty, but you do have to limit the amount of water you drink because otherwise you start to puff up, can't pee it out, and it makes pressure on your heart and on your muscles. So that's one. The other is that you have to eliminate food that you thought was healthy. Fruits and vegetables have a lot of potassium and phosphorus, generally good for people who have good working kidneys. If your kidneys are not working, it builds up, presses on your heart, and can kill you. So you have to follow those rules so that you can stay healthy enough to get through the dialysis. I did yoga the whole time I was on dialysis. It's not a brag. It's something that I just felt I needed to do to try to keep my bones and my muscles strong and healthy. It wasn't easy because I couldn't drink a lot of water, so sometimes I would cramp during class. I have to take a minute, but I did. I did yoga, and that's when I started my meditation practice, because I also had to stay mentally fit to go into dialysis every day, to deal with, I watched people die. There was a woman down my road, I woke up one day and the medics were wheeling her out she had a stroke on the machine. So mentally, physically, you have to both, one, follow the rules of dialysis, and two, do what you can, to take care of your mental, spiritual, and physical health.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I want to say thank you for coming to speak to us. And you kind of touched on this in answering your last question, but my question is, how did your what role did your spirituality play in acceptance and healing and the journey, and how you view and share your story now?
Can you just say a little bit more? You want me to talk about how my spirituality helped me through acceptance? Well, I try to manage my stress by my meditation, yoga, having positive relationships around me, just taking really good care of myself. And I think that's all spiritual. Once you decide that you're worth it, that, you, as I was listening to a podcast of Kerry Washington the other day. She has a new book out. And she said something that really struck me. She said, I want it to be at the center of my own story. And I think that's what I decided. I wanted to be spiritually strong enough to be at the center of my story and to be myself and not to back down from that or be afraid of it. And I try to walk with that, like every day. And that is, I think, how my spirit kind of helps me get through it all.
Yeah, and I think the most important word you said is every day. Because a spiritual practice, the reason it's called practice is because you're practicing it. You will never perfect it, but you keep practicing it. And oftentimes you think, I have to go to the top of a mountain. I have to go to Lululemon and buy beautiful yoga pants. No, you can do your spiritual practice on the subway, on the metro, walking down the street, intentional. And I think the most important thing you said all night is you had a very strong will to live. Gosh, that's so important. And Black people, we've got to want to live.
And not just subsist. We
Yeah.
want to live fully.
Yes, exactly. For ourselves, our children, our communities, our mates, all of that.
Friends.
Yeah.
Can we close? I just want to say one last thing. As someone who read the book cover to cover and interviewed Dean, I just want to say that the transformation that you went through, that's why I said honest, that was my first expression. The transformation was so full and complete and so inspiring. And I say that as a friend and also as someone who interviewed you. And by the way, public service announcement, check out the interview I did with her on Honeyrace, bws.com. And it's just amazing, and I just applaud you because I am just so proud to know you and all that you have done, including telling your story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean and Marita, for this amazing conversation. Before we close out, we have a few words from our beloved founder over here, Haile Garima.
What is a founder? These young people are crazy. Founders. I'm speaking on behalf of my wife and me. I have 4 daughters and 2 sons. Thank you for the, in the century, so many Black men are catching hell. You portrayed Brother Joe. So impressive. With love. Is your son here?
My son is not here.
Okay.
We actually had 3 sons between us.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. This love story is for me, there's a love story of family and the individual, the healing of the individual, whatever the confrontation, it could be flood, anything, overcomes through love. To me, that's the most spiritual part that is underrated by capitalism and profit-making society. But I want to come to our sister. That's why I'm speaking. I was actually editing my film, and then I saw this giant lady is here. What is she doing? How come they don't tell me, these guys? So Maria, in my view, my wife and me call this place liberated territory. So you stepped, if it's your first time, you stepped on a liberated territory. And the battle for us is stories. Stories are the beginning of battles. Whose story, what story? And she's a warrior of that. In Washington, D.C., so many young people, so many writers have come up because of this woman here. And I was like wondering when Kamal said, wow, Oprah, To me, she's bigger than the mountain. I know, the Himalaya mountain, because she's local. She she published a lot, well known. Inaccessibleness is part of the ego tripping in the Black community. She's accessible, very humble, accessible, and has helped a lot of the writings. I want to make sure that is said about you, sister. And also, I think, before I die, she's going to be in my film as an actress.
Why not?
Yeah, we're cooking it, so you don't know about it. It's actually, it's improving. The situation is improving. We'll talk more about it. And just thank you for coming, for blessing us with your presence. But sister, your book, you blessed us here. Thank you. Thank you. My wife's sister, who also.
The name is in there. Thank you all for coming out for this really important conversation. Thank you. So much.
Yeah, the books are in the back. Sorry. We should have told you there's books up there. You pick the book, you come, you get it signed, and then you can talk without paying anything.